Assalamu alaikum viewers, I am Zubia Irfan. Welcome to another Fireside chat session. And today's session is with the collaboration of NICAD and CXO Global Forum. So before I start today's chat session, let me introduce you with the CXO Global Forum and NICAD. Basically, NICAD is the National Incubation Center for Advanced Technologies, is a premier platform driving innovation and entrepreneurship in Pakistan. NICAD provides startups and entrepreneurs with mentorship, access to funding, and a collaborative ecosystem to help turn ideas into scalable solutions that can have a national and global impact. CXO Global Forum is a leading platform that brings together top executives, industry leaders, and innovators across sectors to share insights, explore emerging trends, and drive business transformation. The forum creates opportunities for knowledge, exchange, networking, and collaborative among Pakistan's C-level community and beyond. And hello, Noman, can you hear me?
Zubia, no, I'm sorry I lost you. Are you back now?
Yes, I think there was some internet connectivity issue.
Yeah, I think so.
Viewers, our today's guest is Mr. Noman Abdul Qadir. He's a seasoned executive leader with extensive experience with go-to-market strategy across emerging Europe, Middle East, Turkey, and Africa for different technologies. He has also led digital transformation initiatives, building governance programs, and high-performance sales and channel ecosystems. Known for his people-first leadership style, he excels at bridging strategy and execution to deliver measurable business impact. An entrepreneur at heart, he builds trusted relationships grounded in honesty, collaboration, and continuous learning. So, Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Naman.
Walaikum salam warahmatullah, Zubia. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, first of all, thank you very much for sparing some time from your busy schedule for this fireside chat session.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so to begin with, you have led major teams and transformations across several regions. What early experiences shaped your leadership style?
Zubia, when we are younger, we are full of exuberance and energy, and that typically means that we grasp and learn information, experience from any source. It doesn't matter where it comes from, and that too, you do it very, very quickly as well. Uh, I had my early childhood in Pakistan, in Karachi, and this was pretty much in primary school, and that taught me the ingenuity of our people and the ability to find solutions with limited resources. This is something that stays with you for the rest of your life. It's very typical for the subcontinent. uh, when I arrived in the UAE in 1991, I was still in school, and immediately there was a cultural shock for me because you get exposed to multiple cultures when you land in Dubai. Remember, these are the early days of Dubai where the whole of the ecosystem is very, very small as well. And then when you get exposed to these cultures, you also end up learning certain nuances on how to deal with different kind of people as well. So your perspective broadens, and that diversity brings a lot more understanding of the global picture. When I started my career, I finished my university, and I intended to become an aeronautical engineer, mainly because I was very good with what is now known as the STEM subjects. But in those days, Dubai had very limited choices for people who wanted to study engineering, and that meant I had to give up on that dream very, very quickly. And you went back like any other teenager or any other fresh graduate, and you look at what are the options available. And they said the easiest degree possible, and by no means am I undermining all the finance or business people, but they said it's a lot easier and faster to earn a degree in business. So I switched quickly and I studied finance at my university. And that by default means in those days, you look for your first job, and the banking sector was just booming in those days. And so I went from STEM subjects to business with no background in business. And then as soon as I found my first job, I could not land something in banking, but I ended up at Microsoft as my first job, as the first major employer. So from STEM engineering to finance to technology in a short span of time at a young age meant uh, you understand, when you are about to hit a roadblock, and you switch very, very quickly. Now, that is another value that stayed with me until now. And, you learn mainly two big things. One, you have to be flexible for change, and you have to adjust quickly and fail quickly as well, so you can read out yourself. Second, when I landed at Microsoft, I did not have any background in technology, and that meant you then have to understand first, learn first before you start selling or teaching, and translating very specialized knowledge, be it finance, be it technology, in a layman's term. I had to first translate that for myself in my own head to understand those complications. And that meant that I was a lot better able to communicate that to external entities. So being able to bridge complex scenarios and technology trends to very simple layman terms was something that I learned very quickly as well earlier in my career. And those two things, along with the ingenuity of finding solutions with limited resources, carries with me to this day. And it's been so beneficial in various endeavors and initiatives I've taken in the region.
Great, great. So, Mr. Noman, how has your people first approach influenced the way you lead digital initiatives?
Sure. See, the when I say people first, right? Eventually, technology is here to serve us, the humans, and not vice versa. And they're always dependent. These initiatives are always dependent on driving change. And for any change, people are at the center of that change, because nobody likes change. Human beings hate changing anything that they're used to or accustomed to. So that's the first factor. Second, they don't like coming out of the comfort zone. They like to manage status quo. But the other aspect of it is people are afraid as well of the unknown. They don't know what that means for them. So when I look at people first, when I claim that I'm a people first person, it starts with being empathetic to all those emotions that are running the human behavior. Understanding human psychology, understanding a bit of neuroscience helps. I think a lot of motivational speakers are overdoing it now, but not having that knowledge is also, I think, very dangerous as well when you're driving change. Uh, it is also critical that one is able to read people, and I very often distinguish between reading and understanding people versus judging people. Judgment is something that is not professed for us, and I think it never lands in the right place. But you do need the ability to be able to read people and understand them better. Um, and based on that, you are able to then build a mental picture of the context where people are coming from. You have to understand that people come from different experiences, they have different backgrounds. Many people, I also coach and mentor a lot of people as well globally, and I realize a lot of their behavior patterns are shaped by their early days in childhood. And sometimes there is a flagship event or a trauma that they're carrying on till they become adults. They bring back that to the work culture, and that by default they bring all of that. I wouldn't call it roadblocks, but let's say nuances into your project as well. So people first means understanding that entire background, that entire context, understanding why people fight or fly, their fears, their convictions, their motivations, negative and positively, before you even start your journey of transformation. Digital, like I said, is just an extension of that change. It is the toolkit or the tool set that is available today, and that could change tomorrow. But that context has to be understood well before you start engaging in any transformation journey.
Very right. Very right. So, Numan, why do you believe the human side is often overlooked in digital transformation programs?
I think it's not, belief is a very strong word, but I think it is very rampant. You're right. A lot of the leadership teams worldwide, especially if you look at the C level within the business side, non-technology business people, they ignore the human side for the simple reason that generally they're coming from a position of status quo. Technology still, especially in the emerging world, is seen as a nice to have and not as a must have. Most transformation projects are led by technology teams because of that. Typically, the board of directors or C level will defer this to a digital transformation team, a business process reengineering team, and say, come up and show me value instead of actually believing in the fact that they need to change. Um, the other thing that is, I think, the driver towards that is a lot of technology projects or digital transformation projects are being done today because of what the Gen Z would call FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. They feel that my competitor is doing it, so I have to be on social media, I have to have AI, I have to have cloud, all these nice jargons we've heard throughout our lives. And people are driving technology projects either because they have a problem to fix or because they want to be not left out. Both are so focused on the technical aspect or the technology part that they ignore the very reason why that's being done. And for me, I believe, like I said earlier, people are at the center of any change. So unless you're driving projects to influence people or to improve their lives, chances are you'll become a fashion statement and not necessarily something of business value when you embark on these journeys. Um, I think the other aspect is business leaders also have not necessarily benefited from a lot of technology spend. This is a typical American corporate machine that runs at a very fast pace. Growth is inevitable, and usually realization of value out of change takes a much longer time. And again, that aspect is also very people dependent, right? Eventually it's a business, it's a people that will end up using the technology for their benefit. So if they haven't seen the value in the past, the lack of trust then means the next project that becomes a side gig somewhere in the corner, in a technology office or in a business transformation office, and not a business driver or a business enabler. And hence I feel, because of those lack of trust issues, lack of realization to value, or just not wanting to change, means we don't start with the people first approach, or we don't focus on the human element and the human aspect of driving change.
Very right. Very right. So, Naman, from your experience, what mindset shifts must leaders make before they even begin a transformation journey?
When we say leaders, Zubia, I think we are first referring to the decision makers, where the power circles, where there's influence. And this doesn't apply necessarily to business, even in our geopolitics in our country and the rest of the region. Eventually, the other people are making the decisions. Whether we like it or not, we can question the way it's being done, but we need to acknowledge the fact that they are the power circles. And I think, like all other endeavors, I think intentions are key. So leaders first have to be very clear in identifying what is their intention, what are they trying to achieve, and they have to be honest about it. Right? That's a different paradigm altogether. That honesty will then mean that they would reflect that intention, their words, into actions as well. So first of all, leaders have to be clear in what they want. The clarity is really, really critical. Second, they have to be honest and truthful about that. And those are the starting points for me, number one. Number two, different emerging countries, and I've managed about 70 odd countries across the region. Of course, the pace of change is different in each country. We somehow tend to beat ourselves up in Pakistan, but we are no different than many other countries in the world. In fact, we are probably a little better than some of the others. When people in Pakistan talk about change, they expect the change to happen either tomorrow or never. So either they give up very, very quickly, or they want it tomorrow morning. I do believe the pace of change can be adjusted. Okay, even though I don't like it personally, but when you're dealing with a broader community, even in a business, for example, you need to acknowledge that they may not be moving as fast as you'd like them to move. However, many times we use timing as an excuse as well. So the leadership team eventually has to, like I said, be clear on the intentions, Be truthful about it, as in the intent has to be there to make it happen. You can debate with me about, do we have to do it tomorrow morning, or will it be effective, as effective as it could be in a certain time frame. But there should never be a doubt about the mandate of making it happen. Okay, so I think the second element around timelines is critical as well. People have to understand that change, if it's being delayed just because of timing, uh, can be adjusted, but not postponed indefinitely. And I've seen some examples in live scenarios where I was a C-level executive at a business where I really believe the intention were not there, and we were not going to the root cause of the problem. Right? The intention was, they kept saying there's a mandate, but that mandate was never executed because leadership never believed in it in the first place. The other thing that I see is typically leadership globally will typically have level one and level two, right? Your team, a captain is as good as his team. So the second tier leadership, and the way you manage it becomes very, very critical in driving that change and building not just strategy, but even making it happen. Very often, especially depending on the cultural nuances of our region, certain cultures do not like confrontation, or the style of confrontation is seen as derogatory in certain terms. Yes, we are not American. Americans are very more direct. Europe is a lot more sensitive. Emerging markets is even more sensitive because of our history, where we come from. Um, and in that sense, one has to be careful in the way you approach that change, the way the leadership responds to it. However, I still believe the battle and the war zone has to be taken up at the very top. Generally speaking, you will find very authoritarian leadership, which will delegate to their direct reports a certain mandate, and those people, because they want to avoid confrontation, will pass it down the food chain. That means the big decisions or the big problems are not identified in boardrooms, and when it goes down the food chain, then it starts translating into politics. And for me, politics is cancer in any organization. So to solve that root cause of the cancer, there has to be absolute trust, there has to be absolute clarity, there has to be absolute alignment, even if it means post confrontation. We might punch each other, we might bleed in the face, but when you walk out of that room, the message has to be clear, we're all aligned and on the same page, so the whole organization will then follow your lead. There's a very good book that I recommend to leaders. I was given this when I was starting off very early in my career. It's called "The Five Dysfunctions of a Team" by Patrick Lencioni. He talks about that ability of building trust in boardrooms, even before you start a business or even driving change. So I highly recommend that book to the listeners and also to any upcoming executives, uh, because unless you fix that war room, that war zone, or your central command, you will never be able to translate that down to the food chains and find people believing in that change itself.
Very right, very right. So, how do you build high performing teams that are adapting during constant technological change?
See, teams, again, the word team itself comes from, and, you build teams of people. And I think the key element there is to have the right people in the room or the right team on board. So it starts from recruitment. If you have the choice to recruit, or if you have the choice um, to build from scratch, and that's not a choice that you have all the time. So the first thing is, if you do have the choice, exercise that choice. Make sure that you have the right team on board. And building a team doesn't necessarily mean having the right skills on board. Okay, that's also a myth that people misconceive. You can have somebody who has no idea about a certain project, but it has the right attitude and the right culture, and you build culture with building those teams first. So make sure certain non-negotiables are taken care of upfront. So for example, honesty, transparency, these are values that will be discovered much later when you hit problems in a particular project or change. You don't want to discover it later in the game. So make sure that you have the right team on board with the right value system, so you don't have to deal with it on an ongoing basis. These are structural, I think, dependencies. Otherwise, you'll have structural failures later when you build up your beautiful house or a building. Second, you need to be able to trust them to do the right thing. So integrity is critical. And then part of that is also, you want people who are not superstars. I remember many years ago, I discovered that when you manage large teams, usually people focus on the underperformers. And one of the big lessons I learned in my career while managing people was, you have to manage your highest performing assets even more and keep an eye on them, because sometimes your best performers outshine the others. and that creates a lot more friction amongst the rest of the team members. So the people who beat their chest too much, the people are very flamboyant, very extrovert, can create massive problems when you're building high performing teams over the long term. Third thing is you have to set the tone. You have to allow them to make mistakes. If you are a leader that leads by fear, chances are you'll discover failure much later. And by then, it's too late to redirect the ship, right? You're doomed. So allow people to make mistakes, understand that they are human beings. They may or may not know everything. Pick the right behavior. People are very vocal about their failures, generally are the ones who fix them the fastest as well. So, make sure that you as a leader are creating that environment in the room where it's okay to fail and it's okay to communicate that I failed earlier, because acceptance is the first, step towards fixing problems. Lastly, if you don't have the choice of selecting your, let's say, ideal team, which is normally the case, be practical when you're assigning roles and responsibilities. So in any given team, I play cricket as well. You will not have all able players across the board. And sometimes you have to hide certain fielders who are not so good, right? You need to be able to assign the right positions, the right seats to those people based on their skill set and also their behavior patterns, so that you can be in a journey where all four wheels of a car are moving at the same pace and you don't have to deal with handbrakes along the way where you have the wrong person in the wrong place, right? It's a symphony, everything has to fall in place at the same rhythm, at the same pace for it to move forward. And again, there's a lot of people who sell the science of building teams. I still believe the art element is still very, very critical and, in fact, dominant. It is an art to be able to deal with people and to build high performance teams.
Very well explained, Mr. Noman. So, how can leaders balance governance with the empowerment while still driving innovation?
See, the governance part. I also led a large cybersecurity business for a while for a large multinational. And there a lot of our consulting folk kept talking about governance and how to manage risk with regards to cybersecurity. Governance starts, I think, first with the cultural accountability. It has to be reflected at the very top. People replicate behavior. If you have to police your kids to tell them what to do and what not to do, chances are you failed on that task yourself as a person. So I think leaders have to build that culture where you define the overall boundaries within which one has to play, right? And so governance is more to do with enforcement. It's to do with policy management. Governance is also to do with ongoing monitoring and policing. But that will only take you that far. When you're building high performance teams, empowerment is critical. And today, the culture of the Gen Zs and the Gen Ys and the new generations, the Gen Alphas, it's very, very different. They don't like being policed. And that's the culture you're dealing with. Now, you have to be careful in how you balance the two. Just leaving them, for a free fall is not wise. Governing them too much will also mean that you'll break their trust. So as long as you're defining the overall boundaries, you have your, like a football field, like a soccer field or a cricket field, right? Within the boundary, allow them the flexibility to do what they want, but do define the boundaries. And you cannot police this, you cannot enforce it, you cannot mandate it unless you don't live it yourself. So today, for example, if I'm not failing myself and I'm the superhero in a team, my team will behave the same way. If I act vulnerable and I tell them, yes, things didn't go as per plan, I messed up and it's okay to make a mess, they'll generally be much more transparent about that. And that would mean they're not afraid of what if scenarios. So if you empower them where they're not afraid of making mistakes, of course, within critical boundaries, right? They cannot just make drastic mistakes where everybody fails. As long as they're within a certain framework, if you allow them that empowerment, you generally should not have to govern or micromanage people. Um, I don't want to name the institution, but I was at a very large institution, one of the premier institutions of Pakistan. And I was with the C-level executive who had to get involved in really, really micromanagement decisions. And one of the things I shared over there with him was, and very confrontationally though, I said, listen, that means only two things. Either you don't trust your people or you have an issue with trying to micromanage your business. Both are toxic. So it's not for me to solve, but you need to solve it, right? It is uh, either you will fail yourself or you will fail the institution. So over managing and over governing is toxic. Under managing, under governing also means wastage, and it also means you may not be driving in a certain direction, and that's why it's critical to balance both.
Very well said. So, Mr. Noman, digital transformation often fails due to the execution gap.
Yeah.
How do you bridge strategy with the execution in people-centric ways?
So look, it depends on who's responsible for the execution part, right? Like we discussed earlier, a lot of the times technology and digital transformation projects are sitting in IT, and that's where execution fails because business is expecting outcomes that makes their life better or brings them better numbers. Technology within its capacity will tell you, I have a hammer and I can only do so much with a hammer or a screwdriver. So they are focused on the tool set that is being used to deliver that outcome. And then on the extreme end, you have your finance people who are saying, if I'm going to spend so much money on technology, what's my ROI and my TCO? So people generally get lost in translation where these three elements are not aligned: your strategy, your execution arm, and then the business beneficiary out of it. If they're all on the same page, and that's the critical part, and this is where I feel people are critical. You have to have those, alignment sessions, those war rooms, have very direct conversations. If we are all aligned on intention, that translates into a strategy, and we are clear on the outcomes we expect, then whatever happens between those should be able to be managed. And that is again to do with communication, collaboration, transparency, uh, aligning goals together and aligning wins together. If you want to make somebody a superhero and everybody else is there to clap, then generally they will not collaborate. Nobody wants to make other people successful. So joint success has to be defined, has to be shared, and you have to watch out for the right behavior patterns. You have to monitor this process, not through project plans, not through project kickoffs, but throughout the journey itself. The journey is I wouldn't say it's equally important. It's actually more important than the destination. So throughout the journey, you have to stay close to your people. You have to identify bad behavior patterns or shortcomings, and you have to adjust them, early up, because the longer you take, the costlier those changes are, and then also sometimes it may not land up. You may not land up at the end point that you had initially intended to go to.
Right, right. So, how do you motivate teams who fear new technology or feel overwhelmed by change?
See, new technology will always be overwhelming. And that comes from human psychology, right? I will always be afraid of what I don't know. So, remember when I said building the right teams on board, you have to make sure that people are flexible to change. And also, the other extreme of that is you don't want technology for the sake of technology. People, AI is the buzzword today. We've heard cloud computing. I'm going backwards in time. At one time, there was ASP computing, service providers providing software as a service, for example. Prior to that, we had the dot-com era where the language in which you code technology was the critical point. Throughout the history, especially last 25, 30 years, none of this mattered at the end of the day. What mattered was what was the outcome that was driven. So when you look at people and people who are, let's say, afraid of using technology, I think you need to let them have the space to ease into it. It's like a child, right? You bring a new toy. Imagine you bring a new pet and a child never asked for it, for example. Um, that the child has to get acquainted to that new object in their life, and that means they have to unlearn and relearn their own behavior patterns. Similarly, technology, for the sake of technology, people are shoving down AI. I know many governments in the region are mandating their departments to use AI. So now everybody's walking around like a headless chicken saying, where can I plug in AI, without even understanding what AI is, what are the implications, and what does it mean for me as a business. So one, it's a very, I would say, inclusive process, right? When the new technology is introduced, make sure that people are not afraid of it. Do not mandate it, because once you do, this defensive behavior kicks in. Tell them that this is here to help you, and if it doesn't help you, you don't have to use it. And that way, you're requesting the merit of your investments as well by having a live test through an audience as well. Um, Lastly, you have to position technology as something that is not perfect. Human beings will always relate to, if you tell them this is the best, they would want to undermine it. That's human nature, because we're very competitive by default. Don't get your people to compete with technology. All technologies have limitations, they all have challenges, and they all have failure points. And there's always a cost benefit discussion in any endeavor. So one has to be very conscious of those elements as well, and hence, be prepared to take them on a journey and not to just shove it down their throat to accept. And that's the best way to look at technology. Eventually, it is a tool. It is a tool to make things happen, and it is not the end goal.
Very right, very right. So, Naman, how do you see the role of human centered leadership evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I'm very worried. I think this is a question that I'd rather take a bit more time on. Um, I'm very worried because of the way we are defining success, both at individual level and also at the business level. I think we're becoming more and more focused on the numbers globally. We work for multinationals. Multinationals are so obsessed with growth and providing value to the shareholders, not necessarily the stakeholders. The shareholders have, I think, dominated the definition of success. There's also, I think, a lot of greed amongst the decision makers, especially the leadership team at global institutions, even regional institutions, Um and that is narrowing the definition of success to numbers only. The insecurities are even bigger because people are very insecure these days. Global recessions are happening. There's a fear, uh, both geopolitically, financially, economically, security-wise as well. I'm speaking specifically about Pakistan. you know uh, we have so many influences in our mind which are making us more and more scared as people. When we become insecure, we get into a defensive mode, and that means if I'm responsible for a circle of influence, could be my personal family, could be the people I manage, could be an institution I represent, I will bring that insecurity to the workforce. Now, leadership, if focused only on the number, will mean they'll overwhelmingly try to achieve that goal for personal success. And somewhere in that journey, humans suffer. If I look at, you know, we need to bring back human centric leaders and beat the drum about them. If you look at the global names, local, international, even religious wise, right? And you look at the names that are more well known, you will find them to be very, very focused on specific goals per se. And sometimes it's okay to be a generalist. You have to take the whole ecosystem with you forward. Numbers should not drive all decisions. It's okay to walk away from certain things. It's okay to say no to certain things, saying your definition of success is different than mine. And I should not be scared. I should not be scared of being judged. I should not be scared of what if I miss out? Everybody else is running at 200 kilometers an hour, and here I am driving consistently at 100 or 120. That choice leaders have to make upfront to say, I will do this at my own pace in the right way, and I will define what is right for me. I think that value based or merit based motivation has to be reinstigated amongst our leadership. Remember, technology is coming, Zubia. This is not going to be easy. It'll get tougher. I look at my son, I look at my children, and I look at the world the new generation is coming up with. They're so much into quick hits, the dopamine hits, instant gratification, acceptability. They want to be acknowledged as successful. As young as 21 and 22-year-olds are now on Xanax in Pakistan. I have people who are severely depressed because they feel they've underachieved in their early 20s. And it's becoming more and more of a rampant trend. I've had people who became atheists because they were trying to seek answers of success. They ended up going and speaking to religious scholars, and they confused them even more. And because they didn't have the patience to ride that wave, kids said, you know what, to hell with it. I will walk out of this whole mess. So people are becoming more curious, they're becoming anxious, they want instant answers, and they want to get success overnight. And that doesn't happen in the real world. So our leaders, I think, have a bigger responsibility to impart that knowledge, to impart the wisdom that they've gained over the years into our younger ones and say, you know what, guys, when you become leaders of tomorrow, when you sit on an influential seat, you want to make sure that, like I said, you take the whole ecosystem together. Numbers does not mean success. So define your success properly, define your purpose, don't overdo it. I think a lot of so-called mentors and our motivation speakers and people of influence oversell the idea of the purpose. to a degree where when you don't achieve that, you end up going into depression. And the world is a very dark place. It's not an easy place to be. People are worried about the future economically. I mean, let's not undermine the fact that a lot of people have struggled in Pakistan as well. Our middle class is suffering. You'll always say poverty globally in the world as well. If they're scared of what if scenarios, like what if I don't have a job tomorrow? What if my business fails? What if this doesn't work right? They will do whatever it takes to protect themselves and to avoid change. So that fear factor is only going to grow further. Technology is the same. Many people don't understand AI. It's like when I see certain people who are in their 60s today use mobile phones. They're afraid of asking the question, just like we were afraid. I mean, when we were kids, I was afraid to appear dumb, right? That I don't know how to do this. And then somebody will tell you how to do it, and you say, no, no, I know it now. I was afraid to say, I did not get it. Let me ask again. We have to dumbify ourselves to learn. We have to say, I'm dumb, I'm stupid, please explain it to me again. And I think leaders have to start doing that as well. Not act like superheroes. Bring back that empathy, bring back that trust, bring that human touch. I mean, I would use the human touch as a noun and not let's go back to say who we are. And leaders have to, if God has put you in a position of influence and power, you will be held accountable for the authority that you have. So take it with responsibility and wisely, and make sure that that the people under your influence progress, and you don't leave them behind. You don't want them falling off the bus.
Very right. Very right. Mr. Noman, it has been a very, useful discussion with you. And now it's time for rapid fire. So, so I start with one leadership quality every digital leader must have.
Our digital leader, I would say, focus on outcomes, focus on the business impact. The means to
Okay,
the end do not matter. Focus on what you are trying to achieve.
right. One transformation myth you want to break today.
Not all disruption is bad. Sometimes you have to break down years of learning and perspectives for you to rebuild something beautiful. And one should be ready sometimes to go backwards to move forwards. So it is okay to break the status quo. It is okay to break your belief. It is okay to reestablish or get out of that comfort zone, because once, it's only sometimes, it doesn't have to be all the time, by the way, but change requires disruption, and sometimes you do have to break even people. You have to break them down to the bare bone to rebuild them from scratch, and that's okay. Transformation does not necessarily mean that you will not change, and also change for the sake of change is not beneficial either. So be open to break what is already built or established, then to build something new and beautiful.
Right. Okay. So thank you very much for your time. And I hope our viewers will learn a lot from this discussion. And once again, thank you very much on behalf of CX Global Forum and NICAT. We wish you more and more success in your life. Thank you.
Thank you, Zubia. It's been a pleasure, and thank you again for the opportunity. I hope it was beneficial.
Thanks. So, viewers, this is it for today. Inshallah, see you soon with some another amazing personality. Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz.